Welcome everybody. How you doing? Good. Coming out tonight. Well, let me get into my spiel, okay? So welcome again, like I said, to our second Pod Talk this summer, as we celebrate 20 years of urban homeless perpetuating hope. I'm ecstatic to see all of your beautiful faces. Some are familiar, some I can't wait to meet. I'd like to meet you. My name is Lindsay Hunter, and I have been with Urban Homeworks not quite 2 years yet, but I'm thrilled to be part of this organization, especially being at somewhere that's in the community where both my parents grew up. Okay, so we only have an hour. Let me get right to it, okay? In your programs, each of you have a blank sheet of paper. Feel free to write down any questions, any thoughts, and we'll get back to that later on in the hour and have some dialogue. When you leave here today, I want to make sure you have a good understanding of what Urban Homeworks does, so roll with me. Okay? The mission of Urban Homeworks is to perpetuate the hope of Jesus Christ through innovative community development that produces 1, equitable dignified housing, 2, a strategic network of good neighbors, 3, the redemptive development of real estate. We are a faith-rooted community development organization that picks up boarded, distressed, and condemned buildings in North Minneapolis, South Minneapolis, and the Frogtown neighborhood in St. Paul. We engage volunteers, construction skills trainees, and local minority contractors and subcontractors to help us rehabilitate these buildings so that the entire rebuilding process is not only building skills, but also spurring economic revitalization and engaging individuals to dig deeper into the mission by investing their time. Duplexes and small multi-unit buildings are leased in a mixed income arrangement. We also build and rehab housing for home ownership. With partner organizations, we have watched over 70 families rebuild their credit, drive down their debt, and purchase their own homes. We focus our efforts strategically in 1 block radius areas. We call these pods, which stands for People-Oriented Development, hence the Pod Talk. Yeah, okay. We currently have 16 thriving pods filled with homeowners, rental units, community gardens, urban neighbors, and hundreds of families utilizing each other's voices to rebuild their own neighborhoods. We also engage other organizations and faith communities to overlay our work with their core competencies of job readiness, education, transportation, healthcare, childcare, violence prevention, quality food. The list goes on and on. All this to say, what emerges is a robust, livable community. We do not aspire to be huge housing developers. We often say we are using housing as a tool or a lever, but it is also a table to which all people are invited to come share their gifts and abilities, difficulties and hurts, and dine together. By engaging each other at this table of exchange, we begin to see each other in new ways and enter into genuine relationships. We are about building just, right relationships all across our community. Thanks.
My name is Jessica Mueller, and I'm the Director of Marketing and Development at Urban Homeworks. A few months ago, our Executive Director offered a challenge to an old adage that a lot of us are familiar with, the one that says, give a man a fish and you feed him for a day, teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. He pointed out to our team that none of that matters if we're denied access to the pond. Last month was our first Pod Talk, and we had an opportunity to talk about one of the critical access points we think is fundamental to giving people access to the pond, which is homeownership. Tonight we're really excited to talk about another access point, which is equitable job opportunities and training. Tonight I'm really, really excited to introduce you to a dear friend of Urban Homeworks and a thought leader in this area, Ravi Norman. He's the CEO of the 3rd largest minority-owned construction company in the nation, Thor Construction. He's offered his challenge and wisdom to the work we're doing. We're honored to host him here tonight as he shares with all of us some of the motivation he's had behind the work that he's done and the challenge he's offered to this industry. I would love it if you just welcome with me Mr. Ravi Norman.
Hello, how's everyone doing tonight? Good. This is a wonderful experience for me. I have been on the board at Urban Homework for several years and had an opportunity to be part of the great mission and work that's being done by Chad Schwitters, Jessica, and the rest of the staff at Urban Homeworks. Tonight, I just want to take about 15 minutes to, first and foremost, share a little bit more about myself and ultimately what I think are some really key attributes to maximizing success and maximizing opportunities and defining success. I am Ravi Norman. I was born in Washington, D.C. I was raised in Trenton, New Jersey. I am 40 years old, an African-American male. Some of the most important highlights of who I am is that I've been married for 18 years to the most lovely woman in Minnesota, Amanda. And I'm also father of 3 wonderful children, a 17-year-old Sydney, a 12-year-old Richard, and a 5-year-old Selah. You heard in my background a little bit. I'm the CEO of Thor Construction. I was the CFO before 2009 for 4 years. So I've been with the organization about 10 years. We are, I think, from the last statistics I saw, the largest African-American-owned business in the state of Minnesota, irrespective of industry. And we've had significant growth since I've been there. So maybe there's some degree of success or some level of authority to be able to talk about success there. But what you don't know is where I started. I told you where I started, but I want to share with you some attributes of that about my background. And I think these are relevant because when you hear from some of the great people you're going to hear from tonight, you'll hear some common characteristics that seem very similar to the attributes that I experienced. Now, I was actually raised by a single mother. I did not meet my father until I was 15 years old. I actually had the privilege of doing that when he was living in Minnesota. I actually didn't even live with my mother after 4th grade. After 5th grade, no one in my household really looked at a report card to see how things were going. The male role model who was in my house was a heroin-addicted uncle who really put my cousins and I through significant amounts of abuse, emotional, mental, and physical. So I stand here today that if you saw that profile many years ago, and you were running a regression to say what are going to be the outcomes of that individual, you might say he has a high probability with significance of being in poverty, or what you might deem to be socioeconomic poverty, or in jail. Or maybe even worse, maybe not even here to share with you this morning. But that has not been my story. That has not been my story. My story is one about triumph. My story is one about maximizing opportunities and defining success a very specific way. So I'm going to share with you some of the secrets around I think that success. And the first and foremost is God. I'm a Christian. I give all honor to the Holy Trinity. But in every one of your lives, there is a deity at work. Whatever that is for you. Maybe it's the laws of the cosmos, maybe it's Allah. For me, it's God. But the most important variable that I think towards success is an acknowledgement of that relationship. And being able to acknowledge the supernatural. One of the most important things to the outcome of success is a word called luck. Now, some people will tell you that luck is the cornerstone of preparation and opportunity. I don't define it that way. I define luck for me as my Heavenly Father's blessings in my life. Sometimes maybe not even warranted. But probably the biggest predictor towards my success. Second, community. Now, a good friend of mine, Alfred Babington Johnson, defines community as when people intentionally behave like they belong together. Now, I want you to think about that when you think about your definition of community. When you intentionally behave like you belong together, I believe that there are some symptomatic attributes of that intentionality. One is nurturing. A second is love. A third is investment. And a fourth is an ensuring of certain basic needs being met. That's what you get from community. Now, as a father, I can tell you that the first place and the first line of reinforcement in the concepts of community are in your family, with your wife or significant other or with your children. And then from there, sometimes that goes wrong. That there can be times when the family structure breaks down to be able to reinforce that concept of community. But I'm here to tell you, and this is something to do with the love concept of God, is that you will have surrogates step into that place. Friends, extended family, in my case, basketball coaches, who stood in that place to say, we want to nurture you, give you love, invest in you, and ensure your basic needs are being met. And I think we're all familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Now, after you've had the God acknowledgement in relationship and community, we can now have discussions about individual will and responsibility. And for me, when I think of individual will and responsibility towards my own success, there are really 4 attributes there. And the first is inspiration. Inspiration. Now that is different than motivation, even though the outcomes can sometimes look the same. I believe that inspiration is a much more sustainable phenomenon, mainly because motivation tends to come from external factors. Inspiration comes from within. Your heart, your mind, your spirit. And how does that ultimately align with your purpose and your passion? Inspiration. Once you've been duly inspired, aspiration. This concept of dreaming big. Dream as big as you can. I encourage that for all of my children. And the concept of aspiration and dreaming big, you also have to run through some probabilities to think about the pathways of attainment and the probability of realizing that dream. So being inspired, being aspirational, those aren't good enough without the third, production. Production is putting forth the effort to work efficiently and effectively. I don't know a success model that doesn't have it. And 4, innovation. Embracing continuous improvement through perpetual learning. Now I say perpetual learning because I want you to know something. I probably learned just as much, if not more, in the setback. The opportunity for transformational breakthrough in setbacks is an opportunity for learning. Because sometimes the curses can become blessings. And the flip side is also true. When you have accomplishment and success, to be able to look at that as a best practice that you continuously put in play and can teach to others. But if you're not careful, blessings can become curses if you take on levels of false idols and self-idolatry. So always stay humble in those positions. So God, community, individual will and responsibility leads to a success formula that I call, and I love acronyms for any of you who know me well, sit, eat, grow. Sit, eat, grow. You heard Jessica reference Chad talk about if you're not at the pond, then there's no fish to get. Whether you're eating one fish or you're teaching someone to fish, you need to be at the pond. I equate that to the table. That actually came from my grandmother. Because my grandmother had a unique way of taking very complex things and making them very simple. I call her the great philosopher. My grandmother said to me, boy, you have to make $1 out of 15 cents. Now that may seem like a really funny thing, but I'm going to tell you, that was some of the best econ stuff I've ever learned. That with minimal inputs, you have to be able to produce maximum output. I got that, Grandma. And you know what else she said? If you're not at the table at dinner time, you're not eating. So how do you get to the table? There's a conversation about maximizing opportunity and how you define success. So for me, that's SIT, and SIT is an acronym. The S in SIT is show up. One of the first things I try to tell people is persistently show up. And when you persistently show up, persistently participate when you show up. But show up. Secondly, if you want a seat at the table, Focus on the intangibles. You know, in 1980, the market cap of the S&P, 80% of that valuation was intangible assets. In 2009, 70% were in intangible assets. Patents, trademarks, copyrights, things that are derivative of intellectual property, human skill, and know-how. So intangible assets are a good thing to focus on. Why, too? Because no one can foreclose on those, other than God himself, maybe through dementia or Alzheimer's, some of those things. But the intangible asset between your ears is the asset that will always keep on giving, and no one can take it from you. So focus on the intangible assets, develop your mind. The other part of the intangible asset that's very important is behavioral attributes. People like to give opportunities to people they like. So don't be afraid to increase your likability factor in your behavioral attributes and be dependable and reliable and focus on those things. So focus on the intangibles. Show up, focus on the intangibles, and 3, be a good teammate. I say that to get a seat at the table because oftentimes people will operate under the assumption of scarce resources. And so it drives you to this concept of competition. But most of the people that I know that are operating on a higher level of wisdom understand that it is cooperation that is a much more wiser way to go. Be a good teammate. Nothing you do will be done by yourself. Think about how you fit inside of a larger cooperative model, and you can get a seat at the table. Sit. Now, you got to the table, and you're looking, now you're saying, hey, I'm here, and I want some fish. I like to say I want to eat. My wife's telling me I need to lose a little bit. But it's about eating. So when you're at the table, the eating process is about appropriation and allocation. That's what the opportunities look like. How do you maximize them? And EAT is an acronym. If you want to eat at the table, the first E is be efficient. I say that to folks because I am convinced that the key unit of exchange between us is time, not money. Now, there may be some quantum physicists or quantum mechanics folks in the room who experience time in a very different way than most of us, but most of us experience it in a linear fashion. Once we spend it, it's gone. So you should value it as such, your own time and others. That'll help you eat if you're efficient. 2, be accountable. Be accountable for your decisions and choices. People will give you opportunity if they know that you're going to be efficient with it and you're going to be accountable to it. And the T is be transparent. Be transparent with your intents and the information. Because it's often in those asymmetries where you get disproportionality. And it reinforces the competitive environment. I think open environments about intent and information is the way of the lateral future. So be transparent. Now you will eat. Now you will eat. Now after you eat, anybody ever heard of the term giggles? Nobody? Okay. Garbage in, garbage out. So if you eat garbage, and your body processes it as such, it will come out the other end as waste, and you will not grow. And the ultimate success in this is about growth. So grow, for me, is another acronym. Surprise. Generate real opportunities for wealth. Generate real opportunities for wealth. Key words inside of that. One is real. A lot of what goes on in front of you is an illusion. Your ability to discern what's real is critical. Real opportunities, in my mind, are ones where the disclosure of the opportunity that you're trying to pursue is done in a time frame where you can capitalize on it. The disclosure of the opportunity that you want to pursue is disclosed in a time frame that you can capitalize on it. That is a real opportunity. Another real opportunity is when you clearly understand the criteria for selection or awarding the opportunity. Do you clearly and fully understand the variables and the criteria around the selection and award of the decision, of the opportunity? And finally, can you clearly understand the pathways to success in the opportunity? Those 3 things, to me, is how you discern what is a real opportunity. Now, the second part of that is wealth. or generate real financial assets, and the things that are associated with wealth in that realm is a lagging indicator of your stewardship in the other places and the other assets in your life. Let me say it again. The financial assets are a lagging indicator to your stewardship of the other assets in your life, is where wealth really gets its called value from, and should be your definition of success. And they are spiritual, physical, emotional, mental. And I could give an entire pod talk just on those concepts alone. But I say that to reinforce that to you. Tonight we're going to be hearing about people who are looking for opportunities for real wealth through this phase of job creation, some of it entry-level mechanisms. And we're going to be talking through, and you'll hear this decipherable code that I shared with you today in their stories. You'll hear about the luck concept in their stories and their relationship with God. Some of it very formal, some of it informal. You'll hear about this concept of community. Maybe starting off fragmented in the family, maybe sometimes really strong in the family. Sometimes maybe community that has negative connotations. But they still thought it was a place of nurturing, love, and investment in where the needs were getting met. You'll hear about their own individual will and responsibilities, being inspired, aspirational, productive, and innovative. And you'll understand where they are in this sit, eat, grow model. And it'll be a call to action for everybody in this room. With that, I'd like to welcome the guys up.
And the girl. One of the things that we hope to do tonight is we wanted to introduce you to a few who have become members of the Urban Homeworks team, and some of the exciting work that we've done in the last couple of years through a social venture spin-off that Urban Homeworks has created called UC Squared, Urban Construction Company. So these are the guys that are sitting in front of you right now. This is Mr. Steve Walden. He is the business manager for UC Squared. And I asked Steve, would you be willing to share a little bit about what UC Squared is, how it was birthed, and what it exists to do?
Sure. Well, business manager might be a little generous. I spend a lot of time working with the guys, and I manage by proximity. They can attest to that. But so UC Squared was started roughly 2 years ago as a social enterprise by Urban Homeworks. After we identified through some of the partnerships that were long-standing training arenas, one of them being Tree Trust, that while it was a great opportunity for them in their lives to start their career, see what they like, and maybe get immersed into construction culture, it didn't give the next step. And that's not a hit against any training programs, it's just there is a continuum, and there is a missing link. And so as Urban Homeworks really analyzed what's it going to take to see that these people that are excelling in the training program, we decided to start this construction program that's a social enterprise owned by Urban Homeworks. We work on projects inside Urban Homeworks and external to Urban Homeworks. So we could bid on jobs for you.
At $1,000 or more. Great. So these, I mean, the guys in front of you, generous influence to the business manager, and then these guys are 3 of the 5 charter members for UC Squared that's been operating for 2 years now. So can you all just introduce yourselves first, just names, and just to break the ice, if you could all just say hi back to each other.
Well, hello. Hi. I'm Shaquille Sargent. Hi. I'm John Martin. Hi, John.
That's good. That's good. I might call you again. One of the things, I mean, as we've talked and grown, I think it's become very apparent that we all come from a host of different circumstances. I think some of us are born on first base, some of us are born on third base. And I asked the guys if they'd be willing to share a little bit of the context from which they came, specifically maybe some of the barriers that they grew up with to meaningful employment. So if you guys don't mind sharing a little bit about that.
I guess I'll start. I grew up in the city of Chicago, and I had two sisters and one brother. And growing up, it was really tough for me. And like me having the lack of resources that I needed, I seen growing up was a struggle. Sometimes I had like nowhere to go, no food to eat, and it was like, am I going to stay like this for the rest of my life, or can I make a change? And as I was making that change, we had the lack of resources in the community I lived in had sent me down our own path. And as I was going down that path, I was just really trying to make a living for my household. But as I was making that living, I was making some bad choices. And some choices I made growing up, I found myself stealing a lot. I was taking from people, and like I just really wanted to give my family the best life to live. Like we didn't really have it all.
Bernard, what about you? What did it look like for you?
Well, I grew up in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I've been north of Minneapolis all my life. Pretty much growing up, like I said, it was a struggle. I had two little brothers, a little sister, an older sister, and my mom, my grandma, she keep our family close. She like the older of our family. Everybody grew up pretty much on the blessing. It was, well, not my grandma, my grandpa, my cousin, they was my big role models. They was in the construction field. They was the ones I looked up to personally. And pretty much my family was involved much in just drugs. So me being on the street, that's pretty much I knew from then on. That and aggression. So that's just most basically what I had.
I guess for me growing up, it was just a very unstable environment. I was raised around just a lot of drinking and drugs, which I just thought was normal. So it set me down a path that led me to make so many bad decisions and just destroyed my life. And I guess not see hope in my future.
And John, you shared too, like just the difficulty that you faced in school. Can you talk about that too?
Growing up, I never really got along with other kids. I was often bullied because I have a reading and writing disability. So I was always the outcast and pointed out in class, and then eventually just completely moved out of mainstream programs and just stuck in a classroom alone, or maybe with only 2 or 3 other people. So I never learned how to really make friends or be kind to others like I should be.
You guys, each of your stories, I think, are really interesting too, because there are some unique points that you have, and there are also some really common threads. One of the things that's common for you is that you each faced a bit of a pivotal turning point when you were introduced to tree trust and began to see maybe glimpses into a new way forward. Can you share a little bit about that and where you were at? What brought you there?
Well, what kind of shifted my life around is I found myself in and out of jail a lot. And one day I was in the system going to court, and as I was in court, the judge had mentioned to me, he looked over my criminal record or whatever, and he said that I could end up in prison, and I was only a teenager facing prison time, and it was like, that was hard. So that same day I went home and spoke with my brother and mom and sister, and I told them what the judge had told me, and I also said that if I keep doing what I'm doing, that I can leave you guys and that's the last thing I want to do is leave my family. As I was making that change, I found myself going in the right direction. It was a church in my neighborhood I started attending. And it connected me with a lot of people. Like, sorry, this.
Take your time.
It was just. Would you mind speaking below?
Well, my story, pretty much, I was going to school for most of my first year, second year. Afterwards, sort of, it was kind of like young, kind of heavy in the streets. Got expelled and spent a lot. I just shifted from a couple schools. And me going to my last school I was at, I still wasn't going off too much, but Tree Trust, one day I came, Tree Trust came. They came in for basically talk about their program was for, I was listening, I was there, but at that time it was pretty much a blunt to me. They had on the spot interviews. I did it, and I'm going through the mental toughness and got accepted. Went through the program, went through completed the whole program, graduated, got accepted for the summer program throughout the whole Tree Trust.
I guess I'd have to say a big turning point for me was I was also in an alternative school, and because I had been expelled from high school, just not getting along with others. So the big turning point for me was I just pretty much gave up on trying to learn entirely, and I was going to school maybe only 1 or 2 days a week, and I would just sleep while I was there and leave as soon as possible. So the counselor told me if I didn't start showing up on time, doing my work, and that she was going to charge me with truancy, and the court would try to send me away so that I would be forced to go to a school that I'd probably have to live at. And then she also brought up at the same time that Tree Trust would be hiring, and that I could work for a week to get the money that I needed, but also gain credits to graduate. And so I applied and I got accepted, and it was just like one of the best things that could have happened at that point in time.
So Shaquille, you left off where you were talking about just the community that you found at church and how that started to change things for you. Can you feel comfortable continue?
Yeah. So I was attending church and I was speaking to somebody one day and they introduced me to Tree Trust, and so I started doing Tree Trust, and Tree Trust is like a construction program, and it helps the youth with like construction work and all that stuff. And I was doing it, and I thought I was in the right direction. I thought I was living life, but Tree Trust, you can only do Tree Trust for so long until it comes to an end.
So the partnership with Tree Trust, too, the way that it works with Urban Homeworks is that Tree Trust uses Urban Homeworks construction sites. So while we're rebuilding homes for families in our neighborhood, a lot of the people that are doing the work are these guys. They use our construction sites as classrooms. So each of these have been through that. And for like Bernardi talked about, like going through mental toughness, and it introduces a lot of new structures, like being there on time, what it looks like to really show up. But Shaquille just mentioned it comes to an end. And I would love it if you all shared what happened after Tree Trust for each of you.
Well, Tree Trust for me, around that time, being at Tree Trust, I did like it. It kind of changed me sort of the way. I wasn't really too much hefty in the streets like that until like, there's no really other option when it ended. So, of course, it was back in the streets. heavier than ever. Like, and then pretty much during the process, I tried temp service jobs. It didn't work out so well. And during the whole process, teachers called me back for assistant crew leader. I accepted it, but it was the same time as before, so it was only a few months for that process. But during the period of that kind of started, it was a very time, lights cut off, so it was already to the point that, I feel like even doing this, I'm still, just because it's mostly what I know, and at a breaking point at that point in time.
So Bernard, when you say the lights were cut off, can you tell me what did that look like? What does that mean? So you're at home?
Being at home, when I had to go to the teacher, taking a shower in the dark, then after that, I got little brothers, that feed, I'm helping to try to get them food too, and myself also. And me, on the street also, he's going to be being aggressive, a lot just aggressive. And pretty much down on the line, one day on a holiday, I ended up being not exactly involved in witnessing a murder. So me dealing with all that, it was like the biggest breaking point of my life. Pretty much, too much to do but pray. That's all we pretty much knew.
Well, for me, after Tree Trust ended, I was kind of lost. I didn't know what to do. There wasn't enough training to get a job in construction. There wasn't enough timing to build up enough job credit. And then, so I finally did find another job, but it was so low in hours. I was only making minimum wage. I couldn't support myself. So I just went back to stealing, and I caught a burglary charge, and I got charged with a felony. And then shortly after that, I found out my girlfriend was pregnant, and I was having to go through all this at the same time and trying to figure out how I'm going to get money. And the only way I could think of doing it was just stealing. But I knew that was just going to get me put into jail. So I was just lost. I didn't know what to do with myself.
For me, after Tree Trust, it was like another blank page in life for me. It was like, well, I did end up finding a job at a nursing home, but I only worked there for about 2 weeks before they let me go because of my criminal background. So it was like, I asked myself the question actually, if this job let me go because of my criminal record, would the next job let me go too? So I ended up answering that question myself, and I told myself, yes, that could possibly happen. The job is for life. So it was easy for me to go back to doing what I was doing. I was in and out of jail, selling drugs, homing babies, and it was like doing all that. I was in the streets taking for people when I ended up getting shot. I got shot twice. It was hard for me after Tree Trust. It was like, man, I can be like this for the rest of my life. How do I make a living? What do I do next?
What was your family doing at that point?
My mom, she was around, but she kind of had her addiction problem, but she was able to get the help she needed, and we was getting close to stable, but I feel like we weren't stable enough.
So I just want to jump in here. These guys, they're so open and honest about their struggle, but what I see is so much strength, and we're all honest with ourselves. Nobody in here has had any life-changing move in their life until they had access to opportunity. Some people, they have more opportunities than they know about. For some of us, there are few. That's just the way life is. It's not fair. But what these guys did is they took the opportunity that was presented to them and they excelled at it. And then, because the system is so broken, after they excelled at something, there wasn't the next And so, bad choices. If you have bad choice number 1, worst choice number 2, and worst option number 3, it doesn't matter what you choose, you're going to have a bad result. And I think that they shared these stories not to conjure up tons of emotion, but to really show the rawness of what it's like to not have a good option. And I just thank them for being like open in front of us here.
As I mentioned, it was 2 years ago that we launched UC Squared, which was the attempt to bridge that divide between training and sharpening skills for the workforce. Steve, will you share a little bit about when you made those calls?
Yeah, so roughly 2 years ago, as I said, I had the privilege and opportunity to call these guys up, and I now consider my friends, peers. They're the leaders of tomorrow, really. And I called them up, and when I made that phone call, I didn't know that when I called Bernard, he was at the end of his rope. Like he just witnessed a murder. The lights were off in his house, and he was looking for the next chance. I didn't know that. When I called Shaquille, I didn't know that he was looking at the real chance of jail time for choices that he made after tree trust. When I called John up, I didn't know that he just received a felony for bad choices that he made, and found out that he's working a minimum wage job part-time at Dollar Tree, wondering how he's going to support his girlfriend and son. But that theme that we hear here, it's like my personal belief is that God said, not these. Now it's my turn. Not these guys. They're not going to drop. And it's like, I got them. And, we weren't listening to the voices in our ears in our community. We weren't taking action. We wouldn't have been there at that point in time in their lives when they needed that opportunity. And for me, it's like, I just feel blessed to be a part of it and to walk alongside them and see them answering the call in their lives.
Yeah, I think one of my final questions for you all is it's been 2 years, and I think all of us would love to know, what does it look like moving forward? What are you excited about in life? What has changed and will change? I know, John, I think you're a great person to start. You've been experiencing the milestone of finding out you're having kids. Where are you at now?
Yeah, shortly after joining UC Square, just a couple months in, my son Jackson was born. He's now 16 months old. So I finally got a place of my own.
Well, pretty much after, everything settled, the lights cut back on. That's something I'm happy about. Started to go more on the right path. Just being around, thinking, about having been in UC Squared. So that after that, it was just one of my biggest blessings, actually. I'm just happy, really not. I don't have to always be aggressive anymore at all. I'm somewhere I'm comfortable, even with the crew, we met good friends and everything else of that, I feel very comfortable. I don't have to struggle, I have to, go through it, it's just now from me looking up to my cousin, now, my little cousin, people around my neighborhood, I grew up with, look up to me. Wanting to do things I do is just something I'm just really proud of. Just staying within my community. I want to really thank all y'all too for story. I'm just thankful.
These past 2 years has been like, it's been big for me since UC Squared. Since UC Squared has been like, since I got started with UC Squared, and paid good wages, I'm able to help the people around me, and I also got my own place to stay like John. And I got a 2-bedroom, but I got the extra bedroom because for my friends and the people around me that need a place to stay and to get away from the problems they might be facing in life. And within these 2 years, I finished my first semester of college. And I attended college to be a social worker because I want to give people, the younger kids around me, the resources they need. I want to be a help in life that I needed to help, and I got the help, so I want to give the help. And I want to push UC Squared to get bigger, and to provide other people with more work, and to provide them with the gaps they might be facing in life too. So I also want to thank Steve for these 2 years of life, and thank you guys for showing up to hear our speech, and it's been a real blessing.
I think the blessing really is on us. Everyone in the room would say that. I said before, but it's taken. I know it takes a ton of courage to be as vulnerable as y'all have been. And I don't think I have to say twice on behalf of the rest of the Urban Homeworks team and the volunteers that engage with us that you've been a huge part of this family, and we are who we are because of you as well. So, will you just join with me in thanking them for sharing their stories?
Not as opposed as Ravi, can't walk around without a cheat sheet. So, I'm Ben Post, Real Estate Development Director here at Urban Homeworks. I know Jess just said it, but wow, the courage to put yourself out there, guys, be vulnerable in front of a group of people in your own back door. It's impressive. You guys are inspiring. We've had the opportunity tonight to witness a little bit of the breadth and the depth of what Urban Homeworks, the kind of innovative community development that we're engaged in. We admittedly spent a lot of time on the housing side of community development because we've seen the power that home can mean for people and how it can change lives. We've also seen firsthand, unfortunately, that the disparities, the inequalities in our community, they're directly linked to one another. So housing affects education, education affects employment, and so on. Asking our neighbors to continue to pay for odds that are stacked against them is unacceptable. We've come to understand that the linkage between housing and jobs is integral. We view all of our work through an economic lens, and we really believe that's essential. We're consistently asking ourselves, what will be the economic impact of this decision, and who is it going to benefit? So I'm encouraging and challenging you to start asking yourself that question. What am I doing to economically lift up those in my community? As a business owner, am I being strategic and intentional about my hiring practices? Am I hiring local companies to do work on my home? Am I hiring UC Squared to do work on my home? What problems are you seeing, and what creative ways can you be a part of solutions? We're muddling our way through these decisions. We know that it's complex, and there's no simple solutions. But we have seen some initial successes in things like UC Squared and our localized hiring strategy. John once said to us, I'd done my part in getting training. I had learned how to hold a job, how to show up on time, how to work hard. I stopped hanging around a crowd of folks who were influencing me for the negative and stopped stealing, but the jobs weren't available. And he's right. the available jobs and the available workforce, they're not aligned for a variety of reasons, for a variety of ways. And our task, our challenge is to create innovative ways to link that sustainably. The workforce and the available jobs. UC Squared is our attempt to try to innovatively bridge that gap as we've been talking about tonight. We've been up and running for 2 years, as we said. We've seen firsthand some of the changes that makes in people's lives. You've heard some of those stories tonight. It's a program that provides jobs and real-world training and tries to open doors for full-time, sustainable opportunities for folks. And we hope that eventually it's going to assist in the creating of new businesses. The next door construction, the next crew two. There's a lot of opportunity, and we want to try to continue to innovate around that. So we can't wait to bring more talented young men like Shaquille, Bernard, John, Jeremy, and Lou. But in order to bring more folks in, we really need your help. And so take out your program. The second page here in the program says get involved. So tear this off. Just tears, it's perforated nicely. I'd like you to take a step tonight towards creating more opportunities for folks in your community. We really would like you to make a gift tonight. Honestly, we can't do it without you. We need you. Thank you for struggling with us in this journey towards betterness. And as we're going to take a few minutes here while you're filling out these cards, you can put them in the envelope that's provided. I'm going to pass around a couple of blue baskets for folks to drop those in. And we've got a few, we're going to do a quick Q&A. It's going to be really quick because we've got 5 minutes. From Ravi and a few others. So we're going to have some folks come back up on the stage while you're working on filling out your cards. Thank you.
Y'all have some money you'd like to give it to us? Look up.
I'm going to start the Q&A because we have a short amount of time. A couple people had some slips of paper. You've been handed slips of paper. Some have already turned those in. So if you want the mic, just raise your hand. If you want myself or somebody from home to read the question, we can do that. But I'm going to start with this one right here. And this is addressed to you, Ravi. What are the biggest challenges facing minority-owned construction companies? Biggest challenges facing minority-owned construction companies, would you say?
So I have to have a change in the question. I'm always doing it. So, regardless of whether or not you're a minority-owned contractor or you're a minority-owned firm, our industry right now is going through a very significant change relative to demographic shift. And so the biggest primary concern for every contractor in the industry right now is to be looking for skilled labor. This conversation about how you're equipping folks with skills to be able to perform in the marketplace is important and imperative to us because, frankly, not just in construction, probably in every other industry that's going on right now, too, we just can't afford to have anyone on the sideline. So that's the biggest challenge right now is to be able to find skilled talent. And that's majority contractor, minority contractor. Now, as a minority-owned contractor, typically being a minority-owned contractor has other complications. Usually they haven't been in business for as long. Maybe they don't have the same level of size in terms of their balance sheets or income statements, and because of that, they're usually working with a smaller asset group for those businesses themselves. And so if you have less financial assets, and if you don't have the same level of human capital, talented people in your organization, that's going to present a problem in a really competitive industry that tends to reinforce incumbent relationships. Things that people who've been in business and doing work, same contractors, for long periods of time. It's very hard to break in as any new entrant who has maybe not as many talented people or skilled people just haven't had the exposure to the opportunity, and or they don't have the financial resources, so they can't bond projects, or they can't provide some of the financial risk mitigation that allows you to get awarded an opportunity. So I would just say that some of that just has to be the life cycle of which those firms are REACT firms that are minority owned. And because of that, when you do have some capacity, sometimes it's questioned by the people who are making the selection decision. They think that you come with this predisposition of being small, or not having as many assets, not having the same level of experience, so it's very difficult to break into competitive environment.
Just want to acknowledge that it's 2 minutes to 7, so if anybody needs to leave, feel free. This is probably going to go on another maybe 10 minutes or so. So acknowledging the time here, if folks need to step out, don't feel bad about that. And I also want to acknowledge Jasmine McConnell has joined our panel. Introducing Jasmine, I'll just say a couple things if you want to share more. Jasmine is a journeyman carpenter, been with the union for a while, worked with Urban Homeworks for a couple of years, then went to the union and now has come back. And we're thrilled to have her here. Jasmine, do you want to share anything else?
I just want to thank you guys for the opportunity to come up here and be part of this panel. Qualified at all to be up here. But my experience with Urban Homeworks is I've worked with them for 7 years. I've been in the union for 6. I resigned from the union and came back to Urban Homeworks. It's a family to work for Urban Homeworks. It's a machine to work in the union. And so I want to come back to that.
Question from the audience here, and it's about UC Squared. UC Squared seems like a really great program. What is keeping it from growing, and how can we help it grow? So I guess that's to you, Steve, Ben, and Jasmine, and Rob.
Well, we're still really later into our pilot phase, so I don't know if there's anything necessarily keeping us from growing other than time and seasoning. But I guess the first thing that comes to my mind around that question would be is probably not dissimilar from any young organization or company, is that how do you create predictable, sustainable, reproducible results over time? We've had a really high early success, and I think that you don't have to study too long to see that a lot of companies in the industry can fall out when they have turnover and they don't survive that first hurdle. And so how do we create a model that supersedes the players involved? Players are always integral, but creating a model that will sustain the test of time, I think, is a challenge. I think it's maybe uniquely challenging to UC Squared in that we take young adults out of training programs that are pretty early in their career. So from the industry standard, they're relatively inexperienced, and our goal is to move them to a point where they're a high asset, but not to retain them. So some business model, build somebody up and then push them out the door. We don't really push them out the door, but you know what I'm saying? Like depending on where we're at in the continuum, our capacity is going to change from year to year. So we have the challenge of like right now we've got 5 guys that we're a well-oiled machine right now. We can get in and pour concrete with the best of them. We're going to build a whole house. We're going to do the foundation. We're going to frame it, and in 3 months, maybe these guys get hired out. That's great for them. It's great for us. It's great for the community. But then we kind of fall back in our capacity, and I think that that's true in all businesses, but it's particularly true in UC Squared. So I'll wrap up here in a second. But I think the way that we can maybe address that is having organizations like Thor Construction or others around here come alongside us as mentors and say, how can we help you navigate some of those pitfalls that are going to happen along the way? Because capacity building is not easy. And it's particularly not easy when you're kind of starting so broken. And so, I just think that we would welcome organizations that have been in the industry for a long time that would say, you know what, instead of necessarily taking the asset and giving them a great opportunity, we're going to actually dive in a little bit deeper. We're going to come alongside them, and we're going to see that they're really viable, and we're going to kind of fan the flame, so to speak.
Questions from the audience? Another one submitted here. You got a question right there, Cody.
is how they are now, I think, the most important ambassadors in their own peer group and their own community. What I'm very interested to hear from them is as they reach out to their peers, what are they saying, what are they doing, and what question can't they answer that maybe that's another avenue for assistance and resources that we provide to them for that ambassadorship.
And sir, just quick, tell us who you are and where you're from.
My name is Jim Conrad. I work with Sunrise Banks, been a long-time partner in the community and with Urban Homeworks. And beyond that, I feel great friendship with all folks at Sunrise. It's been a pleasure to be associated with it.
Sorry. Bernard was willing to answer that one. Welcome to the panel, Bernard.
You guys stand up.
Well, I was going to say, my peers, I actually introduced a lot of my peers and people in my community to go to treat each other, to start off the way, to some type of opportunity. That's basically what I went through and got through, pretty much.
Do you, Ben, or Steve, or anyone, do you guys have anything to add to that question?
What do you say to people in the community that have questions around opportunity and ones that you can't answer? I think that was a question. Is that right? Well, I think that it's an extremely complex issue with many players that go back over time, and we're all key players. And so I think that the question, if somebody asks a question, you kind of have to figure out where they're at, because you could say something that might be the right answer and totally miss them. And so I think as people these guys are going to learn, and they probably already do know, and we're all learning together, that as sort of ambassadors of hope or people that are representing opportunity, we have to be students of our audience, or of the people that we're not just throwing stuff out there and hoping to catch them. We've got to be looking around and saying, what is it that you need? Because they might not have the questions even to ask. I don't know if that answers it at all, but that's...
Any other questions, the audience? Thanks. And just tell us where you're from. We are.
Hi everyone, my name is Osman. I'm here on behalf of Senator African office. I thank you for inviting us here tonight. I wouldn't be here without your invitation, so thank you so much. Also, I get out not to just mention my name, but to say, the young man, your stories, and thanks for sharing with us. I have never seen any young person that openly talks about their life in front of audience, people like this. So I want to say thank you, and keep up the good work, and keep trying to explore new opportunities as much as you can. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And maybe in closing, there was one last question from the baskets. Maybe we'll address this to you, Ravi. What skills are missing that cause a gap between training and employment? Your thoughts. What skills are missing that cause a gap between training and employment?
So, the guy running my operation maybe can answer the technical question, our self-performing group. But, I say to folks, especially at the entry-level positions, I often say that it's not the technical competency side of the entry-level jobs that I see the biggest differentiation. I think in the training, teaching people really specific behavioral attributes is really important. This concept of getting people to be able to show up on time, to be dependable, to operate in a team environment, to sometimes have thick skin because it might be culturally different sometimes out there in those environments. That preparation sometimes, and I think Mike even tested this too, sometimes, especially in the entry-level jobs, we'll teach you how to board, we'll teach you what you need to do on the technical side when you get there. But it's oftentimes those behavioral attributes and how to fit into that environment, I think, is sometimes missing in the training environment. And maybe it's because it can't be simulated Because sometimes you're operating sometimes in these training environments where it gets very comfortable with where you are, and then you put out into this environment where it's a new team, new people, you got to kind of build the relations up. Any other things you want to add, Mike?
Well, along with that, what comes is heart. If you have heart, you can get past your ego and pride. And that's when you start to learn. A lot of people come into trades thinking they know more than they really do, and it puts them at a disadvantage. What it really comes down to is people that come to the table and they want to learn something and create a skill or a trait that they can take on to the next level. They need to have open mind and open ears. Because, as I've said to all of our team, pride and ego only get you so far. You got to have skills, you got to have sequence, you got to have structure. And those are the technical pieces that'll come, as Ravi said. So, if you keep that in mind, you're more apt to be looked at as a future employee. You're a trainable asset. If you come to the dance, per se, and you think you're the best dancer, that's always not the case.
I think if I could just ask one last question too. Jasmine had been in the work or in the construction field a minute. Would you be willing to share a little bit of what you encountered in terms of barriers and where you think there's an opportunity to grow?
Like I said, I was in the union and I was able to graduate to get my journeyman's card. So it's a long process to do that. It's a lot of investment in the person who's trying to get the card and in the companies who are sponsoring you in. And some of the issues and some of the things that were brought up every time in different companies that I was working with was the true investment into the employees. We're saying about the skills that needs to be kind of put into place for people to kind of grow and learn as they go along. But some of the things that the barriers that I was having was that a lot of the companies and a lot of people that were around me were not kind of bringing their hands around me and really helping me out to learn the skill. There's a brotherhood and there's a sisterhood in the union, and some of those things are kind of missing in certain companies. I just want to put a disclaimer that I like the union, and I still encourage young folk and people who are interested in transitioning into other trades to join the union. But my personal experience was that there are some times where investment into the employees were not there. And there's a lot of red tape and a lot of under-the-table politics that kind of hindered a lot of the education that could have been done and a lot of the opportunities for education at the time for me. And so that was my reason to resign and to find something that was more closer to my values and closer to helping me kind of hone in on what I was interested in doing. And that was a little more than just being a carpenter.
Thank you so much for being willing to stand up and field some of these questions. And I think that it does, it just begins to expose to us some of the complexities that exist in terms of building skills and filling the pipeline of jobs and job opportunities. But I think that it's an understatement to say that we're excited about one of the tools that we think that we've helped to shape, which is UC Squared. Jim, I love your question. I'm really grateful for it. I didn't get to already praise Shaquille, but Shaquille became a boss a couple weekends ago, or a couple weeks ago. He's now training the next crew member, you know. It is great, and I'm sitting next to them when you're asking that question, and I'm like, do you have friends right now that would join this, and that would be a part of this? And it's without a doubt, right? I mean, they all said, absolutely. So there are a ton of guys and young guys, young ladies that would step in and do this, and you all have been a crucial, many of you have been crucial pieces to get this up and going and to help us creatively and innovatively find what the gaps are and address them. So we appreciate your willingness to come here, to engage in this conversation, and to continue to do so, because we need you. We need your thoughts, we need your expertise, and we need your creativity as well. So before you go tonight, if you didn't get a chance to grab a pen, there are more pens back there. If you want to support us that way, we would be more than grateful for it. We need it. But if you want to support us by having conversations with us and sharing your thoughts and ideas, that's just as rich to us. So thank you so much for coming, and thanks again to UC Squared, to Ravi, and to all of you who have been willing to step up and answer the questions. Thanks again for being here.